Hi, it's your favourite Atomic Blonde here with my Picard Season 3, Episode 6 review. A little bit late this week, apologies. Another week, another cold, another cough. I'm battling through to bring you this review, so let's get into it. Oh, this show is so good. So each week the tension's building. We're getting more cast members brought in. There's bits of information being dropped in at us. There's some great fan service. And I will say fan service, not member berries. I will say that. Because they're not just shoehorned in there with like no purpose really. But I will come to that. So at the end of the last episode, obviously Jack finds in Beverly that he's hearing and seeing things, and when he killed the changelings, he didn't know that they were changelings, and he's like, I think, I'm like really, really broken. So this episode opens with, we see the Titan's transponder obviously been discarded, and a number of Starfleet ships all sort of walk and zap into it. Obviously, Titan's not there. They're doing everything they can, obviously, to avoid Starfleet right now. And we also see the Shrake arrive, and Amanda Plummer's back doing her best villain. I love she goes, Picard! The way she pronounces it is just great. So obviously she's there. The Titan's not there. She's not happy. Obviously she doesn't want excuses from her crew. And one of her crew members sort of says, they looks like they're one step ahead of you, and she comes up with this plan, and this poor crew member sort of criticizes her plan, so she just has him shot and disintegrated, and she do. So obviously their mission still very much is to get Jack, and they need to find a way to get ahead of Picard. She basically tells them to find out everything that they can find out about Jean-Luc. Who are his friends? Who has he worked with? Who's anybody that you might give two hoots about that he might reach out to for help? So then we cut to Beverly and Jean-Luc in sickbay. And Beverly's discussing with him that this Jack's confided in him. And as soon as she found out, she's done some tests. And it turns out that he's inherited the same genetic disease that Jean-Luc has, which is the aromatic syndrome, which is the stupid. I think we always know that we had this stupid, how Jean-Luc was killed off in season 1. So Beverly obviously says, this is what's happened. And, I always thought like Jack was sort of special and gifted. He had imaginary friends and he had this vivid imagination, but it just turns out, there's just too much going on in his brain. She's giving him some neural inhibitors and, what she can, but obviously even in the 25th century, it can't be cured currently. So, Jean-Luc goes to sort of apologize to Beverly. It's not really his fault, but and she's like, don't help me. Go help Jack. So Jean-Luc goes and finds Jack in 10 forward. Yep, that hologram is still running. They're getting all the out of that set, that's for sure. So not surprising, Jack sort of drowning himself in a bottle of bourbon. And Jean-Luc, talks to him, and Jack asks him, like, well, how did you survive it? And obviously Jean-Luc goes, well, I didn't. Obviously, as I said, got killed off in season 1. And Jack's, oh yeah, that's right, you're all positronics and whatnot, and I don't suppose you've got another one of those bodies up your sleeve for me. And Jean-Luc tries to explain, that, obviously he's an old man. I mean, he's lived with it for decades, before he succumbed to it, and Jack is likely to do the same, which obviously right now that's not really, I guess, Jack sort of takes him, he does have a lot of wisdom and stuff, but he says that the irony is, my mum has spent her whole life trying to protect me from being in your orbit kind of thing, the crazy life of Jean-Luc, and basically he was doomed before he was even born, so that sort of realization that what he's inherited from his father is going to kill him, whether his father was in his life or not. We then see Worf and Raffi beam on board, and we obviously get a bit of a reunion there, and Beverly gives Worf a hug because I don't think he's a hugger, and Beverly's like, yeah, I know, but and then we have a little bit of a exchange with Riker and Worf, because Worf never really got Riker's sense of humor or just human sort of sarcasm and things like that. He was always a bit of a data on that one. And then we get a bit of an awkward kind of exchange of Raffi and Seven, because obviously they were a thing in season 2. But then they go on to well, quite rightly, Worf's like, this is great, but we need to debrief, and we have to make sure that Ro didn't die for nothing. Her sacrifice was for nothing. So we get a classic debrief scene, and they're all sitting around the table, and Worf and Raffi kind of start explaining, obviously about the changelings, and they know that they're obviously different. And then they do a little bit of a recap for anybody that's not familiar with DS9, which I'm not. So as I've said previously, I wasn't massively into DS9. Did get a lot better towards the end. That obviously during the Dominion War, the Federation came up with a virus weapon to use against the changelings, which is like Worf's bit like, it's something that the Federation is not proud of, and it hurt a lot of people. But then but also the Federation gave them the cure to the virus, and it was put straight into the collective kind of thing. So a little bit of an exposition, a little bit of backstory, what's going on, and they go on to explain about Daystrom and the portal weapon being stolen. They feel it was all just a cover up or a bit of subterfuge to steal something else, a more powerful weapon, a more dangerous weapon. So they've got to go to Daystrom to figure out what was taken straight from the computers there, what's on the manifest, because what's Ro was able to extract is all heavily redacted. They can't tell. So they agree that Worf, Riker, and Raffi, too many Rus, are going to beam down to Daystrom, as they've now got the key, which they also got in the previous couple of episodes, to work out what's been stolen. On the bridge, so they go to Daystrom. They beam down and insert the key, and they manage to. The key does what it's supposed to do. It recognizes them, so they can then start going through to find the main computer. But Starfleet have caught up with them, and ships are now sort of on locked onto them. They're coming into Daystrom's orbit, and Picard has to make a quick decision. It's like initially they try and beam them out, but they can't. So Picard has to make the decision and say, look, we're going to have to leave you. We'll be back within an hour. Just hang on. And he's like, I've got an idea. And he gives a destination to Sydney, and she sort of goes, with all due respect, I don't think that's a good idea. And he's like, do it. And off they warp out there as quickly as possible. We then see, and this is the first of a little bit of fan service. So Riker and the others are making their way through Daystrom, and they go through this corridor. And as they go through, these sort of screens light up, and we see and we hear the original TOS music. and there's a panel, and on that you kind of see a skeleton, like a framework, an image of someone, and it says James T. Kirk. So he managed to get his body back from the Nexus. Who knows? I don't know. Just retcon that whole bit of nonsense, generations rubbish. So yeah, they have the body of James T. Kirk. They have his DNA. Imagine what they can do with that. Then we pan across to another one, and we see a Genesis 2. Obviously, again, the Genesis device. There's a Genesis device 2 being built. And Worf's explaining this is like basically where the Federation hides their secrets. This is where Section 31 hides things that they don't want people to know about. And then lastly, there's a little squeaky noise. You see a little fluffy tribble, which then launches onto the thing. Is like trying to take Worf's face off, to which Riker finds hilarious and says like, it's a mighty Klingon scared of a little. They basically turned tribbles into these attack creatures, which is brilliant. And Worf sort of makes a comment that, again, about Riker's like, you still find comfort in humour, and you like in humour making other people uncomfortable or something like that. And Riker's just like, which I think is great. Like, he's like, I don't understand this world anymore, which is something we say like every day. Like, the whole world's gone mad. We're living in clown world. And it's great to sort of see Riker saying this, because like Worf just doesn't bite back anymore, because obviously he's doing his meditation and stuff. So Riker's just like, what is wrong with the world? I just don't get it anymore. We then sort of see a computer screen kick in, and they're sort of scanning the faces, and then it locks onto Riker's, and it brings up like a file on him, and it's Riker, blah, blah, blah. And next thing we see is this crow flying through and land, and he's like, what's that holographic crow? What the hell is that about? Because obviously the AI is designed to be illogical, and it sort of protects obviously what's in there. So they're like, what's a crow got to do with it, kind of thing. And Riker sort of says there's something really familiar about that crow, and he's like, what, from your nightmares? What the hell? And then we start hearing musical notes, and everything's sort of shaking. And Riker's like, because obviously he's a jazz musician, he's like, is that an F sharp? Is it this? Then we go cut to where Jean-Luc set the destination to. And they arrive, and there's old space dock. And off old space dock are these rings with all these ships in. And he's basically taken them to the Fleet Museum, where Geordi is, and so Shaw's like, they go, wow, we've even got old space dock, and it looks absolutely amazing. It's just so good, gives you chills. They get hailed, and again, Sydney's a bit like, I really don't think this is a good idea. And Geordi comes up on screen, and he's basically, Jean-Luc, power down, lower shields, but I'm sort of. And John was like really taken aback. He's like, but Geordi, we need your help. What the hell? And Geordi is hostile as. He's like having none of it. So he beams on board, and Jean-Luc goes to meet him, and he's got like Jack and Sydney with him. And when Geordi beams on board, he's got his other daughter with him, Alondra. And like sort of like Sydney, he's like, Sydney, and she's like, sir. It's like super frosty, and Jack sort of clocks how frosty this is, and Geordi's like, right, we haven't got time for, because Jack, Picard goes to introduce Jack, and Geordi's like, right, we've got no time for pleasantries, follow me now. Like, he's super pissed. And Geordi's so I think some key things, he's writing his third memo to Starfleet to say, we shouldn't have all the fleet together on Frontier Day. This is a really bad idea. And okay. So Jean-Luc and Geordi are discussing what's going on. Jean-Luc's trying to explain that they're not just running from Starfleet, they're running from changelings. I mean, this is like a really big thing. And Geordi's just like, you put my daughter in danger, you're on the run, you're taking my daughter with you. And obviously Geordie's just very obsessed, and quite rightly as a parent, is just like trying to protect his daughter, protect his daughter's career, and just like, Jean-Luc, you know, we aren't young anymore. You can't just be doing all these things, you know. Right? So Picard's like sort of saying, look, can you give us can you clone a transponder so we can hide our trail and all of this. And Geordie's like, I can't, because I need certain codes from Starfleet. And even if I did, it wouldn't make any difference. So Alondra tell him. And she goes on to explain again that despite Geordie saying this isn't a good idea, and was very anti it, all the ships are integrated now, and all the ships can talk to each other. And they're like, oh, so that's how they found them. Picard goes on to explain that Riker and the others are in Daystrom, and he's like, don't tell me you broke in there as well. Now you want my help to break them out. He's like, this is just getting worse by the second. We go back to Daystrom, and these notes continue to play, and then Moriarty steps out from TNG, but it's not that Moriarty that's, I don't know, still must have got destroyed when the Enterprise was destroyed, I guess, but because he was in like a holodeck within a holodeck, and Barclay had him. So let's see, he was taken to Starfleet, maybe. I don't know. I digress. So this is a representation of Moriarty, but not the Moriarty. And obviously Riker recognizes him, and this tune continues to play, and Moriarty does this great little monologue, and he's going on about this tune in his head, and it's driving him nuts. And then as the tune's playing, like, Riker realizes what it is, and we get a flashback to Encounter at Farpoint, obviously the very first TNG episode, where Riker first meets Data, and Data's sitting in the tree trying to whistle. This is kind of the whole Pinocchio thing, but he's whistling like half a pound of tuppenny rice. And like, pop goes the weasel, and Will whistled it to Data, and Data's just like, that's fantastic, because he could never master it. And then Will whistles that again, and Moriarty sort of passed the test. Moriarty goes, and then they manage to go sort of through into the inner sanctum, if you like, where they think they'll find the main terminal. And then when they go in, they basically see an aged Data, effectively. There's a sort of version of Data but aged, but then also to the side there's Data's head, or before's head, that Data downloaded his personality and everything into. And obviously they're sort of taken aback by this, like, whoa, Data. We go back to the Titan, and there's a lovely scene on the bridge, and Jack comes up on the bridge, and Seven's sitting in a number 1 seat, and Jack goes to sit in the captain's chair, and she's just like, out. And Jack's like, I'm just trying it out. And they're sort of sitting there, and Seven starts sort of flicking between different cameras, looking at the different ships. And Jack starts talking about, and we go and we see the Enterprise A, obviously from the motion picture. And Jack just like says how he's a Constitution class fan and always has been, and the lines and all of that kind of thing. And then we sort of clicks on a different one, and we see the USS New Jersey from TOS. They go on to see the Bounty, the Klingon bird of prey from Voyage Home, and Seven tells him about how they had trouble retrieving it because the cloaking device came on. They couldn't find it at the bottom of San Francisco Bay for a while. And then Jack's like, oh yeah, the WoW thing. And then she clicks on another picture, and he goes, oh, it's a beautiful ship. What ship's that? And it's Voyager, and the Voyager theme starts to play. And then Seven has a lovely little, where she sort of says, like, how that was her home and they were her family. And it went further out there than any other starship's ever gone before. Obviously, they're in the Delta Quadrant. And, it was just lovely. And Jack's just like, so you're just basically trying to find another home. So, again, some lovely fan service of it. But Seven says to him, like, well, someone who's quite anti-Starfleet, you know a lot about starships. And he goes, well, everybody loves a starship. But it's just lovely, sort of like some Klingon birds of prey again from TOS, you know, going right the way through the Defiant. So yeah, absolutely lovely just seeing all these different ships and models. We just haven't seen ships like that in New Trek. They're all just like, they just don't have the right aesthetic. So seeing all these old ships and old space stock is just absolutely just loved it. So let me see, like, where are we? Yeah. So basically, Geordie's completely refused to help Picard. He tells Sydney that he's agreed with Picard that she will stay with him at the Fleet Museum, and she'll say something, sign that she was unwilling, you know, accomplice and was taken against her will, kind of thing. And she stands up to Geordie and says, "No, I'm not unwilling. You know, I'm in this with my crew. I basically saw a cadaver that was me. You know, we've got to try and do something. We've got to stop this." And Geordie's obviously like, you know, do you know how worried your mother and I were when the ship went missing? And, you know, you've got, you know, these people aren't family. And she's like, yes, they are. They are family. And you taught me that your crew is like everything. And he's like a bit taken aback by this. And she basically refuses to go with him. We then see Sydney and Alondra and Jack talking. And Jack says, do you fancy committing a bit of minor larceny? And they go off. We then go back to Daystrom, and obviously Riker and the others are trying to figure out if, you know, who is this version of Data? What is it? And they come across a recording from Sung, and this is the Sung from season 1, which was Data's original creator's brother. Keeping up. It's all a bit naff, but hey. So he's basically said that he's created, you know, a new version, or, you know, he was always thinking about legacy and what you leave behind, but it's more about evolution and moving forward and those kind of things. So he's created this version with the ultimate kind of gift, if you like, of aging, of wisdom, and he's put all these different consciousnesses in it. So we've got before, law, lol, and Data all in there, but Sung died before he could combine those consciousnesses into one conscious. So he's got these different fighting personalities going on in his head, hence why he's not switched on. Starfleet can't get him to work, and they just don't know how much of Data is in there. They've never been able to access Data's consciousness that he downloaded into before. So back on the Titan, there's this sort of wave that happens in the bridge, and all these alarms start going off, and Seven's like, cloaking device has been activated. And Georgie's just like, oh my God, to Picard, like, you stole my cloaking device from the Klingon bird of prey? How dare you? And Jean-Luc's like, I didn't do anything. I promise you, Geordie. Like, you know, you're my friend. I wouldn't go back on you. And Geordie's just like, they're like, and then all of a sudden they just both stop dead and go. And Picard's like, Jack. Geordie's, Sydney. So they've gone and stolen the cloaking device. They're trying to install it. By stealing the cloaking device, they've automatically set off some alarm. So Starfleet's on their way. It hasn't quite gone to plan. Things are like sort of sparking and blowing up. They're not quite sure what to do. It's starting to overload. And Geordie walks in, and then she's going, it's going to overload. I don't know what to do. And Geordie's like, I do. So he sorts that out. And we get a great scene with like sort of Shaw meeting Geordie on the bridge just before this happens. And he's just like fanboying all over Geordie, saying, because obviously he was an engineer, as we've discovered. And he's just like, oh, you know, oh, I'm so pleased to meet you. And Geordie was like, a bit like, yeah, would love to geek out with you, but not now. And he's just like, yeah, it's been a weird week. Well, I'm sure. So Geordie fixes this, and then we go back to Daystrom. Obviously, Starfleet have arrived or are searching Daystrom. They know they've got to get out. They tap, and Picard's not there. And of course he's not. So they're like, right, okay, we've got to take Data with us. And there's a bit of debate whether they should take Data. They don't know what state he's going to be in. They don't even know if they can switch him on. If they switch him on, which personality they're going to get. He could be dangerous. But basically, they've worked out that obviously Data is the manifest. Data's seen everything, and he recognized them, and he wanted them to know that he was there. So they then have to run a sort of sequence so they can like disconnect him from the computer. The Titans then able to arrive, but obviously they've got to decloak. So you had to beam them in. They say, right, we're here. We're going to decloak in. You've got like 90 seconds to get, so we can get you up here. Meanwhile, Starfleet are at the door. So Riker's right, I'll take care of this. You've got to get Data out. That's our priority. He goes out, manages to take out a few of the guards, but then he gets shot with a transporter inhibitor in his back. And Shaw's like, oh, we've lost one of the lock-ons. And Shaw's like, just get whoever's in there out, and we're out of here. So they managed to get Raffi and Worf on board. Riker's left behind. And then Geordi walks into the transporter room, greets Worf. And then behind Worf, he sort of, as he comes off the transporter, they're like, we've lost a friend, but we also found another friend. And Geordi's just like, oh, Data, because this is his friend, obviously. Then they have to try and get Data working. And there's a scene where Geordi's working on him. And Sydney and his other daughter are there, and they're chatting. And Geordi's like, I'm not angry. And he's like, I'm just disappointed. And he goes, not in you, in myself. Old me would have hesitated to help my friends. And I'm just disappointed that I just, I didn't. I just, I was more worried about you and your sister. And it took her to remind him, like, what's important, that these people are your family. So, and they're chatting, and she sort of said, and he asked her for a certain screwdriver thing while he's working on Data, and she says, oh no, I think you need one of these. And you're a bit like, oh, here we go, girl bossing. But it's not. He went, oh yeah, you're right. And she's like, yeah, I did pay attention. And she goes on to explain that, obviously we've got her nickname is Speedy because she was always crashing stuff. And she's like, why did you think I crashed so many times? It's so I could be with you and you could help me fix it. And this is lovely, like father-daughter moment, which is just, good dad makes change. And then, we see Riker, he's basically being beaten up by members of Starfleet, and they're like, well, tell us where Picard is, tell us. And he's like, nah, and he's like, pummeled in the face. And the person hitting him pulls out a phaser and puts it to his temple. And he just sort of looks up defiantly. And then that person turns around and shoots the other two Starfleet guards. And then changes into Thanik, Amanda Plummer. And you're like, oh, crap. So now the changelings have got Riker. We go back to the Titan where they get Data working. And he kind of comes on and they're like, Data, is that you? And he looks and he goes, Captain. Talk to Captain. Obviously, last time we saw him, I think it was like Captain Picard, not Admiral. And they're like, Geordi. And they're like, is that you, Data? And he's like, yes, no, I'm not sure. And then we sort of click around, and he does go to Law's personality. And they sort of have to ask him, like, what was taken from Daystrom, what was stolen. And he just keeps saying Jean-Luc Picard, and they're like, this is just pointless, right? He doesn't understand what we're asking him. And he's like, Jean-Luc Picard, and they're like, I think it's what says like, he's got like a reboot switch or something. And he's like, Jean-Luc Picard, and then you kind of have like from his eyes, he's kind of got this holographic projector. It's quite cool, and he projects, what was stolen. And then what we see is they took Jean-Luc Picard's body, obviously his dead body, and they realised that they took Jean-Luc Picard. Then we go back to the Changeling ship, and Riker's like, these are my friends, the people I've known for 35 years. Do you really think I'm going to give them up for you, and betray them? And she's like, no, I don't. But but you will for her. And Riker sort of turns around, and Deanna's there. She's allowed herself to get captured. And she's just like, oh, Will. And he's like, it's not Blim Will's fault you got captured, love. It's your own sort of fault. And that's assuming that it is actually Deanna. I mean, it could be a changeling. We don't know. But anyway, that's where the episode ends. So we've had a few bits dropped in. So obviously, Frontier Day, we already knew, is a massive risk. But all the ships are now connected, like through an integration, some sort of AI. Now, given what we've seen so far, it would suggest that they could have the technology, or they could get authorization codes or something, I don't know, that they can make, obviously, the fleet just turn on each other and they can just blow themselves up. They don't have to do anything like that. They don't have to smuggle weapons on board. They could just make the whole fleet destroy itself, is what I'm thinking. And then we've got the whole, so they're after Jack, and they also have Jean-Luc's body. So it's got to be something about cloning or the DNA, or maybe something even to do with the fact that they brought up the syndrome. Maybe it's something to do with that genetics. They want to weaponize it or do something with it. Don't know. But I cannot wait to find out. These bits are coming in, it's obviously building up to something big. We know that, and I'm loving it. The whole thing with Jack having the syndrome, I think it's true. Beverly wouldn't be wrong, but I'm still not convinced that's why he's having the visions that he's having. I think there's something else behind those visions. I don't think it's just down to that syndrome. So again, there's still something to figure out there. Like, why is Jack seeing what he's seeing? What was the voices that he heard? And so I don't think it's just this syndrome. Now the ships can all talk to each other. Dangerous. And why do they need Jack and Jean-Luc Picard's body? Well, I guess we will find out in another episode on Friday. As I said, this episode was a banger. I love this episode. Built on last week. They're sort of dropping things in, and even like the conversation. There's a conversation like very early on when they left Daystrom, and they're like, just short of being invisible, how are we going to get them back? So it's already sort of planted that seed around cloaking devices. Things are said and they're not forgotten about, which is so refreshing. Actually keeping track of their own writing in their own canon. Like I say, some people might hate this episode and go, oh, it's all just member berries. So I think it's fan service. I absolutely love it. And the fact that they managed to sort of like almost retcon and get James T. Kirk's body in Daystrom, that at some point he could be cloned or brought back, or maybe he's alive. We don't know. I just think that is like for every fan, because like he had such a useless, pointless death in Generations. It's just like, no, this is James T. Kirk. So yeah, I loved all of that. Seeing all the ships, I thought it was fantastic. Sorry if you don't, but it all adds to the story. There's a reason why it's there. It's the reason why they've gone to, not just randomly gone to the Fleet Museum and Geordie just happens to randomly be there. He runs the thing, which he said in episode 1 that he was going to send his painting of the Enterprise D to the Fleet Museum. It all makes sense. Wow, who'd have thunked it? So anyway, that was my thoughts. Do let me know whether you're loving Picard, whether you like the episode, you didn't like the episode. I am just buzzing for the next episode. I'm also getting to that point where it's like, oh no, we're over halfway. There's not many episodes left, and I'm going to be gutted when this finishes. I'm already at the point where I can rewatch the episodes 2 or 3 times and still enjoying them. This is just absolutely fantastic. I'm loving it. I cannot wait to see how it all plays out. How, we know it's changelings, but is there something behind the changelings? It's obviously something to do with that virus and what we did to the change, or what Starfleet did to the changelings. Very excited, as you can tell. So anyway, as I said, I think it's great. Let me know what you think. And if you like the video, do please like, share, and subscribe. It's really important. I just realised I've had the wrong banner running for the whole of the episode saying Sunday lunch. It's not Sunday lunch, is it? It's my Picard review. But hey, you know what I mean. It's this cold. I tell you, I got like absolute sieve. There you go, right at the end. Let's get the right one on. Why not? See if anybody's paying attention anyway. So anyway, I will be back, hopefully at the usual time of getting the review out, Friday, Saturday. And I've got rid of this blooming cold and cough. I can't believe it's like every few weeks. It's like every time I go in the office, everybody's ill. So, but never mind. First world problems. So anyway, have a great week. Enjoy your shows. And I will be back in a few days. Take care. Bye-bye.